Good evening. Welcome to today's class on the new path. We will be doing a new chapter today. The teaching is individual. Before we start, let us start with a prayer, invoking the presence of God and Gurus with us. Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, friend, beloved God, great masters of Kriya Yoga, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Peshwarji, beloved Gurudev, Paramhansa Yogananda ji, saints and sages of all religions, dear friend and guide Swami Kriyananda, humbly we bow at thy feet, great masters of Kriya Yoga. Be with us here today. Help us to tune into thy divine consciousness. Bless our understanding, bless our thoughts, guide us, that we may always live our lives according to the teachings of Kriya Yoga in every aspect of our lives. We are thine, be thou eternally ours. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We will start with a chant. Come out of the darkness, Mother, bathe me in thy light, bathe me in thy light. Come out of the darkness, Mother, bathe me in thy light, bathe me in thy light. Come out of the darkness, Mother, bathe me in thy light. Come out of the darkness, Father, bathe me in thy light, bathe me in thy light. Come out of the darkness, Mother, bathe me in thy light, bathe me in thy light. Come out of the darkness, Mother, bathe me in thy light, bathe me in thy light. Come out of the darkness, Mother, bathe me in thy light. Come out of the darkness, Mother, bathe me in thy light, bathe me in thy light. Come out of the darkness, Mother, bathe me in thy light, bathe me in thy light. Come out of the darkness, Mother, bathe me in thy light, bathe me in thy light. Come out of the darkness, Mother, bathe me in thy light. Come out of the darkness, Mother, bathe me in thy light, bathe me in thy light. Come out of the darkness, Mother, bathe me in thy light, bathe me in thy light. Come out of the darkness, Mother, bathe me in thy light, bathe me in thy light, bathe me in thy light, bathe me in thy light. Pausing here for a moment, gazing up at the point between the eyebrows, sitting up straight. Tuning into the divine consciousness. Tuning into this chant. Come out of the darkness, Mother. The darkness is a delusion that we live in. Bathe me in thy light, light of wisdom. where we realize who we really are, where we awaken from the delusion of this Maya, from the darkness of our ignorance, to realize who we really are, the sons of God, the children of God, inviting the Divine Mother to fill our consciousness, our understanding, our whole being with light, that we may be free forever in her. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, last session we went through some part of the renunciation chapter. That was one intense chapter with a lot of insight into what being on a spiritual path is all about. What does it take? What is even as a householder, um, the, how we should lead our lives with this inner renunciation. It's not so much the outer renunciation that Master was talking about. And then we did the other chapter, the God protects his devotees. It's a sweet chapter, but again with uh, you know uh, understanding, with the some insights on how God protects, the Guru protects, and we also need to have that faith that practicing God's and Guru's presence every time, so that it becomes very natural, especially when we need help, to remember even to ask for, call him out for help. So having that complete faith, when we give our lives completely to Guru takes care. He takes charge of our life, and through all those stories that we read in that chapter, time and again, it was coming out so well. But again, Swamiji then goes on to say that why do problems come? Why do people go through various difficulties? Is it because God doesn't love us? No, it's not the case. I mean, God, we are all made in the image of God. There is no reason why we should suffer. And God doesn't want us to suffer, as Master said. We suffer because it's an energy we have put out, maybe in this lifetime or in the other lifetime, where we caused certain things because we have closed the window. Because to it's, live in harmony means in body, mind, and soul is in harmony. When Master said that our we are like a house with three windows: the physical, the mental, and the soul, right? So if we close any of the windows, then we suffer, and it's us only who has to open that. And the main problem why we suffer is because of the spiritual ignorance, and because of that we get into various troubles. And it need not be so if uh, we resolve at this moment itself that we will live a life which is in harmony with nature, with the natural law of God. And Master helps, but again, Swamiji writes that those tests that are helpful because we need to learn lessons. How can we be free? We either, the karma that comes to us is coming to teach us a lesson. So unless and until we learn that lesson, it keeps, sometimes we find that same karma keeps coming back. It's because we haven't yet learned a lesson. So if we are progressing in our spiritual journey and we don't need that lesson anymore, he takes away. But those lessons that we still need to learn, he allows it to come to us, because his purpose, he's our true friend, and his purpose is to lift us out of this delusion. So for that, whatever needs to be done, he will he will do that, even allowing us to go through certain tests. So from there, now we come to the next chapter, The teaching is individual. First, let's listen to Swamiji reading this chapter, and then we can discuss this.
Chapter 24. True teaching is individual. One sometimes hears the lament, there are too many denominations in Christendom. Yet I dare say that even if there were only one, there would still be as many different forms of Christianity as there are Christians. For every man's understanding is conditioned by his own special experiences, his aspirations, his outlook on life. In short, by what he is. He might recite the Nicene Creed in church every Sunday, yet attach meanings to it that would surprise some of his fellow worshippers. In reciting the Lord's Prayer, children have been heard to say, "Give us this day our daily bread, and lead us not into Penn Station." We smile at their innocence. But are we so sure that we ourselves really know all that is intended in the Lord's Prayer or in the Credo? The same problem confronts us in our efforts to understand one another. Even those people to whom we feel nearest are closed books to us in certain parts of their being, as I had been to my mother in the urgency of my desire for truth and for God. Parenthesis, and in that case she might have been more open, for before my birth she had deliberately given me to God. Close parenthesis. What then of a God-realized master? Is it worthwhile even trying to comprehend the vastness of his nature? Our allotted task is to comprehend ourselves to our most central essence. Whenever fellow disciples spoke to me, as they sometimes did, of trying to understand Master, I would marvel. It struck me as rather like trying to understand the universe. The task that infinity places squarely on the shoulders of every human being is just this: understand thyself, know thyself. To study the life of a master with the purpose not of understanding him, but of obtaining deeper insights into one's own true nature and into one's own potential for divine unfoldment, this is the wise use of discrimination. Master himself was to each of us like a flawless, highly polished mirror. What came back to us from him was not his opinions of us, but our own higher self's reaction to any lower attitude we projected. His perfect self-transcendence never ceased to amaze me. In another person's company, he actually, in a sense, became that person. I don't mean that in our company he assumed our weaknesses, our pettiness, our moods of anger or despondency. What he showed us, rather, was the silent watcher at the center of our own selves. An amazing feature of my own relationship with him was that I could never clearly remember what he looked like. I needed a photograph of him to bring his image clearly to mind. Even among such photographs, I have never seen any two of them exactly alike. When he is shown posing with someone else, in some subtle way, he actually looks like that person. Shown with the imposing and slightly portly Señor Portes Gil, the President of Mexico, he somehow looks imposing and portly like Señor Gil. Posed with small, fragile-looking Amelita Gallicurci, the great opera singer, he looks unaccountably like her. Photographed with Goodwin J. Knight, Lieutenant Governor of California, he appears almost to be Mr. Knight's alter ego. Footnote, these three photographs may be seen in two publications of Self-Realization Fellowship, the Golden Anniversary booklet and Paramhansa Yogananda in Memoriam, page 81. Back to the text. Standing with any disciple, he seems to become that disciple. One wonders how a single face could display such a wide variety of expressions. But of course it was not his face that changed, it was the consciousness behind it. Master went a step beyond seeing the God in each of us. He became that God, in order that we might see for ourselves our own divine potential and understand better how the Lord wanted to express himself through us. Ah, Master, if only I had comprehended as clearly then as I do now the miracle of your gift to us. But had I done so, I suppose by this time I would be making the same lament on a deeper level. For evolution never ceases, until at last time itself becomes timelessness, and the ends we seek end in endlessness. In his training of us, Master's teaching was individual also. It was not that he altered his basic teachings to suit our personal needs. Rather, it was his emphasis that varied. To some he stressed attitudes of service, to others deep inwardness. To one he emphasized the need for greater joy, to another for less levity. His emphasis was to a great extent too subtle to be phrased in words. He conveyed it by some intonation of the voice, by an expression in the eyes, or by a tilt of the head. What he said to one person he might never say to anyone else. In a very real sense, he was to each of us our very own, very personal divine friend. In the work we did, one might have expected him to honor that basic principle of every well-run institution: make the best use of individual talent. To Master, however, this practice would have meant using us. His true concern always was for our spiritual needs. Sometimes he would actually take us away from some important assignment, one perhaps for which no one else could be found, simply to meet some spiritual need of our own. Sometimes, too, he placed people in positions for which they weren't qualified, with a view to prompting them in their struggle to meet his expectations, to develop needed spiritual qualities. At other times he gave us work we disliked, not particularly because we would be good for that work. I recall a job of carpentry he once put me on. For every time my hammer hit the nail, there must have been 9 others that I missed it. But because the work would be good for us. Perhaps it was that we needed to learn some spiritual quality. For example, to overcome a natural unwillingness, which I myself had for carpentry. Sometimes he would not place people in positions for which they were eminently qualified, simply because they no longer needed those particular experiences in order to grow spiritually. One might have thought, for instance, that he would have called upon his most advanced disciples to help him with the ministry. In fact, he did say that he appointed only those as ministers who, in former lives, had developed the requisite spiritual qualifications. Along with those qualifications, however, was the still more pressing question of what we ourselves needed to grow spiritually. Speaking to me once of St. Lin, his most highly advanced disciple, he said he was leading a center in Kansas City several years ago, but I asked him to give it up. Service in that capacity was no longer necessary to him for his spiritual development. Sister Kanamata, his most advanced woman disciple, and deeply wise, could have rendered enormous assistance by giving lectures, teaching classes, and writing articles for the SRF magazine. But Master never asked her to serve any such role. That kind of work simply wasn't necessary to her for her spiritual growth. In fact, in the spring of 1949, I tried to get her, along with several other senior disciples, to write articles for Self-Realization magazine, which Master had asked me to spruce up and make more helpful and attractive to the general reader. Fill it, he told me, with short, practical articles on the techniques and principles of right living, articles that will help people on every level, physical, mental, and spiritual. I wanted to enlist as many disciples as possible in this worthy project, and naturally thought that the more spiritually developed a writer, the better his or her article would be. To my surprise, however, neither Sister Gyanamata nor any of the others I'd hoped most to hear from responded to my appeal. Indeed, this was my first confrontation with the truth that a master's training is individual. My first instinctive response, don't they want to do master's will, conflicted with my awareness that they must know a great deal more than I about his will. I was forced at last to conclude that while Master wanted the magazine improved, he didn't necessarily want every hand on deck to improve it. It was not only a question of what he wanted, but of whom he wanted it from. In fact, I now realize that he was focused on helping me specifically to understand better how to reach out to people in their needs. My own deep-seated desire had always been to share joy with others. Having perhaps suffered spiritually myself, I felt deeply the spiritual sufferings of others, and longed to do all I could to assuage those sufferings. Master responded to this deep inner longing in me, and trained me from the beginning for public service. In January 1949, he put me into office work answering letters. I typed them in my room, since at that time there was no separate office for the monks. At first my letters tended to be too long. I once knew a lady novelist, Master told me one day, by way of advice, who ended her letters, quote, "If I'd had more time, this letter would have been shorter," end quote. He corrected me at other times, too, on the best ways of presenting his teachings to others. Not long after he'd made me a letter writer, he asked me to study the complete set of the SRF lessons. His stated reason for doing so amused me. "I want your suggestions for their improvement," he said. His real purpose, I knew, was to get me to study the lessons deeply. Soon thereby, he also made me the official examiner for students of the printed lessons. This job meant reviewing and grading students' answers to the tests which, in those days, were sent out at the end of each step. By these means, Master sought to give me a thorough grounding in his teachings. In March of 1949, he asked me also to write articles for our magazine. I began to write under the pen name Robert Ford. My first endeavor, You Can Change Your Personality, was featured in the May-June issue of that year. One evening, Master sent for 2 or 3 of us and talked at length about his work in India. A strong intuition awakened within me that Master would someday send me to that country. Eagerly, I jotted down everything he said. A few days later, I saw him as he stood on his private upstairs porch. "I have plans for you, Walter," he remarked with a quiet smile. Certain as to his meaning, I was delighted. But after I'd left him, the thought came, to go to India would mean leaving Master. The enormity of this threatened loss threw me into a deep depression. "Master is my India," I cried silently. What could I possibly find there that I haven't already right here? Gradually my dark mood left me. As I became calmer, I reflected that Master surely would want nothing of me but what was spiritually for my best. 2 days later I saw him again. By this time my depression had vanished. "No more moods now," Master said gently when we met. "Otherwise, how will you be able to help people?" Every year for the next 3 years, he made plans to go to India and to take me with him. Each time the trip was postponed. It was his death, finally, which cancelled the trip for the third time. I did get sent to India eventually in 1958 and spent the better part of 4 years there. Many years later, having completed the founding of 7 communities in America and Italy, I decided as I was approaching the end of my life to found an 8th community near Pune, India. Sometime in February or March 1949, Master instructed me to stand outside the Hollywood church after the Sunday morning services and shake hands with people as they left. In his lessons, he states that people exchange magnetism when they shake hands. Thus, what Master wanted me to do was not merely greet people, but act as his channel of blessing to others. The first time I tried it, I felt so drained of energy afterward that I actually became dizzy. I suppose what happened was that people unconsciously drew from me in the thought that I was there as Master's representative. "Master," I said later, "I don't believe I'm ready for this job." I explained what had happened. "That is because you are thinking of yourself," he replied. "Think of God, and you will find His energy flowing through you." His suggestion worked. By holding to the thought of God, I discovered that I actually felt more uplifted after shaking hands with congregation members than beforehand. "When this I shall die," Master once wrote in a rhymed couplet, "then shall I know who am I." One of my office jobs was to send weekly announcements to the newspapers to let people know which minister would be speaking at which church the next Sunday and what his sermon topic would be. Master had been lecturing fortnightly in our San Diego church, alternating weekly between there and Hollywood. During recent months, however, he had taken to going to San Diego only occasionally. The church members there, who naturally wanted to see him, were told to check the church pages of the San Diego Union every Saturday. Whenever Master's coming was announced, the church was filled to overflowing. One week in May, I was instructed to send in the announcement that Master would appear there the following Sunday. It had been at least 2 months since his last appearance there. I smiled to think how delighted the congregation members would be. Saturday morning, Bernard came to my room with horrifying news. "Master can't go to San Diego after all. He wants you to speak in his stead." "Me? But I've never lectured before in my life." "He also wants you," Bernard continued with appalling insouciance, "to give a Kriya Yoga initiation afterwards." "What? But my goodness, I've only attended 1 initiation." "2, Bernard corrected me. "Master also initiated you last October at 29 Palms, remember?" "All right, 2, what difference does that make? I mean, well, of course I'll obey, but, oh, those poor people." "He'll only have to initiate 1 of them," Bernard consoled me. "Here's money for the bus. You'd better leave immediately." In Encinitas, several hours later, Reverend Michael, later Brother Bhaktananda, reviewed for me the outlines of the Kriya initiation ceremony. I worked hard on my sermon also. With sinking heart, I drove down the next morning to San Diego. In the little room behind the church, I prayed desperately for help and guidance. As the time arrived for the service to begin, I went out and sat in the chair at the center of the stage, as was the custom in those days. Through the closed curtains I could clearly hear the murmur of a large and eagerly waiting crowd. The dreaded moment arrived. I stood up. The curtains parted. My worst fears were realized. The church was completely packed. People were standing in the aisles. Others were craning their heads in through the windows. I could feel the wave of shock as something almost physical. Instead of their long-awaited guru, here before them was an unknown and rather lost-looking boy of 22, asking them if they were, still, awake and ready. I felt so sorry for them in their disappointment that I overlooked the awkwardness of my own position. If everyone there had walked out, I would have understood. But regular meditation evidently had made them gracious. No one left. The Kriya initiation that afternoon frightened me even more than the service. Michelle Evans, the lady I initiated, looked as terrified as I was, infected, as she later admitted to me, by my own insecurity. Master's blessings, however, powerfully present, soon dispelled all my anxiety. The ceremony went smoothly. I returned to Mount Washington that afternoon, bowed perhaps, but unbloodied. Later, Master received compliments on my lecture. Most of all, he reported, pleased, they liked your humility. Humility, I reflected under the circumstances, had been virtually unavoidable. In case anyone wonders at Master's willingness to disappoint so many people, I can only point out that if his reason for doing so had been some special need of his own, there were other experienced teacher-disciples whom he could have called upon. Since he chose me, he can only have had in mind some reason concerning myself. Over the succeeding months, he made it increasingly clear to me that he was counting on me to spread his message far afield. My youth and inexperience were not for him the issue that they were quite naturally for me. He saw us, as he often indicated, in terms of the past lives we had spent with him, and not only of the present life. He didn't place the same importance on length of discipleship in this lifetime that others, notably often the disciples themselves, did. Often I heard him quote the words of Jesus Christ, "The last shall be first." His meaning was also, "those who last until the end." What mattered to him most of all, however, as he made clear to us also, was that our relationship with him was, to quote from the Bible, from old, yea, from everlasting. Those who came to him late in this life might also have done so, because they had a role to play long after he left his body. From the time of my San Diego church experience onward, Master had me lecture regularly there and in the Hollywood church. He also began referring to me publicly as Reverend Walter, though the actual formalities of ordination weren't completed until a year later. Your desire to be happy, he often told us, must include others' happiness. I had long known in my heart that I would be called upon some day to serve others through teaching and lecturing. But whether out of the humility that Master sometimes praised in me, or from darker motives of unwillingness, it was several years, I'm afraid, before I could bring myself to believe that my lectures really did anyone any good. Master made it clear, however, that he expected me to take this responsibility seriously. "Sir," I once pleaded with him, "I don't want to be a lecturer." "You'd better learn to like it," he replied pleasantly. "That is what you will have to do." At informal gatherings of the monks, he would usually direct his conversation to me, as if to get me to absorb his philosophy to my depths. At such times I would think, it must be because I'm so superficial that he won't let me close my eyes and meditate in his presence. For such was the inspiration I felt in his presence, that my desire was to deepen the experience of it inwardly. Master was responding, however, to more deep-seated tendencies in my nature, and was subtly emphasizing that the work of absorbing his teachings and of sharing them with others was what I myself needed to grow.
So the first para itself, where he says that um, even there is difference between everybody's understanding, and why he says for every man's understanding is conditioned by his own special experiences, his aspirations, his outlook on life, basically by what he is. And this is what even Patanjali in his Yoga Sutra says, that that is a kind of obstacle for each one of us, right? We are where we are in our spiritual, sorry, some audios. We are where we are in our spiritual journey. Our consciousness is wherever it is. And we will understand it from what we have seen around us, or, in our childhood, something, some experience. Linking that only we will be able to understand. Whereas actually what the Guru must have, or, that scripture has said, or Guru has said, must be very different. And so each one, Swamiji once met one Swami when he had come, when he talks about when he had come in 1950s, he had met one Swami, and that person was telling him about something, and Swamiji said, no, but that's not what my Guru said. And that Swami then said, if all disciples really understand what their Guru says, then where will there be, there will not be any fight amongst them. The whole problem is, even amongst the same, as he's talking about Christianity, but even amongst the same Guru's disciples, again, each one's consciousness is different, each one's understanding and experiences are different. Each one will understand what the Guru has said differently according to his, wherever he is in his spiritual journey, right? And that's what he says, that when the little ones, they say, give us this day on our daily bread or whatever, we smile, but he says, really, does it mean that we understand these prayer deeply? Not really, right? In fact, now when this we talk about this Lord's Prayer, there's this very sweet story, right, with that master also relates about the three hermits uh, who live in some place in some island, and they don't know anything. They're like, we are three, thou art three, so have mercy on us. That is all they would always pray, and mm, very innocent, and actually things, miracles used to happen around them. So one priest, bishop, he says, he goes there and meets, because he hears about them. He goes and meets, and he says, okay, what do you pray? And they tell that, we are three, thou art three, and have mercy on us. He says, no, 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 no. Let me teach you Lord's Prayer properly. So he sits the whole day and teaches them the whole thing. And when he's satisfied that they have understood, he goes back on the ship. And suddenly, they turn back and they find this ray of light rushing on top of the water. And just where the ship is, it comes and stops. And then he sees these three hermits, and they say, oh, father, please wait, please stop. We have forgotten how you had taught us to do the Lord's Prayer. Can you tell us again? And he says, no, you don't need it, because what you're doing seems just fine. I mean, they had, just by saying that, whatever they were saying, they had developed that kind of power that, the miracles were happening. They were actually, all three of them holding hands, were rushing on top of the water and were looking like light. But then many don't have that kind of purity of heart also that is needed. So their understanding, he says, is very different, even of the Lord's Prayer. So he's saying that, understanding each other is also a difficulty. And then people try to understand Master himself, a self-realized Master. God realized Master is like, it's like God is like an ocean, infinite, and self-realized Master is one with that infinity. How can any one of us, with our limited understanding, really um, understand the depth, the consciousness of God? He says, is it worthwhile even trying to comprehend the vastness of His nature? It is like. I mean, there are so many stories that we can talk about. It's like this story of this Mahout, who had an elephant. He had six blind sons, and one day he allows the sons to, give the elephant a bath. So each one had a different part of the body of the elephant that he was cleaning. And finally, after they finished, then one boy said that, oh, now I know how an elephant looks like. It's like, a long, tall wall pillar kind of a thing is what is the elephant. The other boy starts fighting with him. No, what are you talking? It's like, huge palm leaves. And they start fighting. And the third one says, oh, no, no, it is like a wall. The fourth one says that it is like a, and the youngest one who is cleaning the tail, he says, no, no, it is like, a rope hanging from the sky. And they start fighting among themselves. And the father watches all this. And then he comes and says, all of you are right and all of you are wrong. Then boy says, how can that be true? I mean, either I can be right or I can be wrong. He says, no, each one of you were cleaning a part of this elephant. So what the part you touch is the part you knew is what the elephant, but the elephant is much more than what you know, right? So it is only I have seen the full elephant. So that is how the problem is. If we try to define God, if we try to define a self realized master and his consciousness, this is what it is. With our limited understanding, we will never be able to understand him truly. And do we really need to do that? To define him or limit him to where we are at this moment? He says, the task that infinity places squarely on the shoulders of every human being is just this: understand thyself, know thyself. That is all we need to do. That is our goal. The aim of our every life, human life, is to know that ourselves, who we truly are, not who we think we are. Right? There's a difference between who I think I am in this incarnation versus who I really am, which is I'm a spark of God. We are all children of God. The soul is a spark of God. It is made in the image of God. It is God, right? But none of us, we haven't realized that yet. And but that is the aim of all human life. As Master said, he said to study the life of a master is the purpose not of understanding him, but of obtaining deeper insight into one's own true nature and into one's own potential for divine unfoldment. This is the wise use of discrimination. Swamiji writes, masters, the self-realized masters, avatars, I mean, our line of gurus or any avatar, Jesus Christ, Ram, Krishna, they don't come to show how great they are. They come to show what is each one of us potential. Our true potential is that each one we just have gotten believing about them, The purpose is to understand who the master doesn't is send a, in that group. I will send one. Master being a flawless mirror. So what is come back? So, come
Okay, I'm connecting through my. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. So I'm connecting through my. I'm connecting through my phone. Some problem with my. Okay. So what I was saying is, yeah. So master, we all have this voice of conscience when we are doing something that is doesn't seem to be right. There is this discomfort. There is this voice within us which says this doesn't seem right, or we feel a discomfort. That is what the guru is. The guru lives in our heart. Okay. So that's our soul's voice telling us. The guru is one with that soul's voice. So he says that it is not his opinion. He doesn't. The guru doesn't is not like a personality who will have like we have opinion about everything. Guru doesn't have anything like that. What he is just reflecting uh, what our true nature is all about. And when that is when we act in this world through our little consciousness, through our ego, which is not in line with what what should be, that is what he reflects, right? So he says what comes back to us from him is not his opinion of us, but our own higher self's reaction to any lower attitude we project. His personal self, his perfect self transcendence never ceased to amaze me, he says. In another person's company, he actually, in a sense, became that person. And but he says not that doesn't mean assumed our weaknesses, our pettiness, our moods, our anger, but he says what he showed back to us, what he reflected back to us was our true nature, was a silent watcher at the center of our own self, our conscience, our soul. That is what he reflects back to us every time. He's like anybody acts in through their ego and projected a lower consciousness. He would show that this is not you. This can't be. I mean, you are capable of something much higher. That is what. So he says an amazing. He says I can't even remember what he really looked like. Even among such photographs, I have never seen any two of them exactly alike. And where he goes on to tell that when he is with different people, and I have seen those. I will share. I think it is on the Google also. I have seen those pictures. He actually looks like that. Like when he is with this um, um, president of Mexico, who is portly, Master looks like him. And with Amelia Gallicurci, who she was a delicate and very sweet Master, though he was quite plump. But standing next to her, he had a very delicate look. Somehow he just looks that way, very feminine, very delicate. So that is what Swamiji is saying. He was reflecting her when he was standing with her highest potential, her consciousness, which was like, her soul quality was what he was projecting. So, but of course, it was not his face that changed. As I said, I will be sharing the pictures in the group. It was that consciousness behind it that consciousness is that soul consciousness. Master went a step beyond seeing the God in each one of us. He became that God in order that we might see for ourselves our own divine potential and understand better how the Lord wanted to express himself through us. So we always see, like, right, when people go in the company of saints, that is why they say that, visit the saints. When you go in the company of saints, even the worst person, you know, he in his company he is not projecting that aspect of him at all, right? Any people coming with whatever evil tendencies also in their company, they are different. They change. They are not able to be in that lower consciousness with them. And when we say that, um, again, that can be our takeaway throughout the day. Whose company are we keeping? Why not be in the company of a guru, practicing the presence of God and guru? The more we are in tune with that consciousness, the more we transform from inside. After all, how long do we meditate? In 24 hours, how long does one meditate? Right? We have all have various other duties. We are all householders, and that is this path all about. So when we are, you know, even doing our mundane everyday activity, practicing that, being in his company, whose company are we keeping? Right? So the more we tune into that consciousness, the more we that inner transformation starts happening. So he says, ah, master, if only I had comprehended as clearly then as I do now the miracle of your gift to us. But then he said, even if I had done that, I suppose by this time I would be making the same lament, because every time we understand it, we grow in our consciousness, we will understand a little bit more, because he is vast, infinite, right? So with our little understanding, it can we can only project, know our know we are just improving our understanding. But till he says we reach that stage where uh, at last time itself becomes timelessness, and we seek the end in endlessness, which means once we reach the nirvikalp samadhi, we will truly understand what he was telling. Till then, it's only improving on our understanding. So he says in his training of us, master's teaching was individual also. So it was a general, yet to each it was also individual. He says that doesn't mean he was altering the basic teachings to suit our personal needs, but each one of us, because of our own temperament, needs a different one. Like within the path that we are in, each one of us has a different temperament. Somebody is more, bhakti, and somebody is more, karma yoga. Somebody would be more wise, jnana yoga. That is what the four paths of yoga: the bhakti, jnana, karma yoga, and of course, then the Raj yoga, where the Raja, how the Raja, who is the Raja is the soul. Soul is the Raja. And for the Raja to have a harmonious kingdom, he has to make sure that body, mind, and soul are all working in tandem. And for that, harmonious. So meditation is needed, and everything else is also. So Raj Yoga encompasses every aspect. The Bhakti Yoga is also part of Raj Yoga. The Gyan Yoga is also part of yoga, this thing, and the Karma Yoga also. So based on the temperament of the disciple, he would suggest a particular way of how to approach their own spiritual journey, right? So he says, to some he stressed attitudes of service, to others deep inwardness, based on what was their temperament. And his emphasis, he says, was to a great extent were too subtle to be phrased in words. It would be something, just an intonation of voice or expression of eyes. So now next the question, and he says that in a very real sense he was to each one of us our very own, very personal, divine friend. Now having said that, now that we are master is not in his body, so now the question will come that, okay, he was doing all this for the people when he was living in that body. He's not around, so how do I know how should I approach my spiritual journey? As Swamiji writes that he was not telling people in as many words, which means, and in one of the previous chapters, we saw that when this one of the brother monks would always keep clicking the master's picture, master said one day to him, why are you taking pictures of this shell? uh, if you want to know me in your meditation. So if we want to know what does master want of me, or how I should approach in this particular situation, or how I should serve, or how I should be on the spiritual journey, tune in your meditation. Ask that question. We will receive the answer. Okay, he will guide us through it naturally. He will give us opportunities which will seem just right for us. So in the work we did, he said one might have expected him to honor that basic principle So in any corporate organization, what is the purpose of the boss? He will make sure that that work, that the right person with the right fit, who has the capability to do that thing, is put. Whereas here, master was not so bothered about that. The spiritual work, okay, the organization had its own work, but he says his true concern always was for our spiritual needs. And he says sometimes he would actually take us away, even if that person was the only person who could have done that job. But if his spiritual needed him to be doing something else, he would take that person away, not bothering whether this job work is getting affected or not. That kind of compassion for each disciple, amazing. So that's why he's saying that he's our own very, very personal divine friend. He says sometimes too he placed people in positions for which they weren't qualified, like how okay, like how Swamiji, he says only to develop the needed spiritual qualities. Like Swamiji, he disliked carpentry. So likes and dislikes is not. I mean, I like this. The whole point of transcending ego is to transcend this likes and dislikes, right? So he put him on that job because there was a lesson for Swamiji to learn, even though he was not good at that work. But it was to overcome these likes and dislikes, an unwillingness to want to do this work. So he was put on that job just to learn that lesson and move forward. Sometimes he would not place people in positions for which they were eminently qualified, he says, simply because they no longer needed those particular experiences in order to grow spiritually. He says, in fact, he did say that he appointed only those as ministers who in former lives had developed the requisite spiritual qualification. So you see, it is master. We have been with master. Is this the first lifetime we are with on this path? This is proving it. No, the very fact that we were attracted to this path, we took on this, is because we have been with him before, and he knows us inside out, our karma, whatever we have done, he knows. And he says that he's looking at that whole picture rather than just this lifetime picture, right? Do I really deserve this? Am I really, we have all kinds of questions, how come and all. He knows he knows what he is doing. So, as Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, that no effort on the spiritual journey is ever lost. So, wherever we live, even, I mean, the last lifetime, if we have been, progressing, but at some point, I mean, we died or we left. But whatever thing we have done in the next lifetime, we just pick it up, right? So, and then the next picture, we see the picture of Master, where he says, Master exemplified the androgynous balance of the perfect human being. He had the compassion and love of a mother, wisdom and willpower of a father. So, this is that, the balancing of the male and female energy, which each human being has. It's just that as male, they project more that male energy, and that female energy is, kind of subdued and reverse for a woman. But some people, even though it's a woman, she might be showing more of the male energy also. But that's not the point. The point is that each one of us, as that at the perfect matching, the balancing of both this male and female energy is what will allow us to get free, be free from this constant coming and going, the liberation. So speaking to me once of Saint Lin, he said that he had taken him off being a center leader of some center, because he no longer it was necessary for him. And Sister Gyan Mata, again, she didn't need it, so he didn't put her in. Whereas Swamiji had just come in and he was telling him to do various works, right? To make the articles, write articles, to make the magazines more attractive. And Swamiji thought, oh, what do I know? What will I write? So he was trying to get in touch with the so-called senior disciples, and they didn't show any interest. And here is the problem, right? Most of us think that Master said, make the magazine, more attractive and better, and they are not agreeing to do that work. So, don't they want to do Master's will? But the Master's will was for Swami Kriyananda, not for them. They didn't need it. Master didn't, I mean, it wasn't his will for them. So, because Swamiji, as he says, conflicted with my awareness that, but again, he knew that, they know a great deal more than I do about his will. But still, that doubt came. Like, how come they're refusing? It is Master's will, after all, that this magazine be made better. He said, I was forced at last to conclude that while Master wanted the magazine improved, he didn't necessarily want every hand on deck to improve it. It was not only a question of what he wanted, but of whom he wanted it from. So Swamiji needed it. It is Swamiji's, Master often said that your work will be of lecturing, editing, and writing. So he was preparing him. Swamiji needed to learn this. So hence, I mean, whatever comes, seva comes our way, it's good to think probably I need it. That's why Master is allowing this seva to come to me rather than thinking that, oh, I don't know how to do it. I'm not so good. Why can't she do it? Why can't he do it? Why are they telling me to do it? Take it that, Master wants me to learn something in this. Probably there is some learning for me in this. That's the best. Spiritual journey path is all about attitudes. How, what is the attitude that makes all the difference? We resist it, we will be pushed more. There will be more tests that will come our way. So the moment we open to it, saying, okay, there must be something that Master wants me to learn, and we open to that, even if we might not know how to do that work, but that thing came to us. The moment we say yes, things will open up. We will be able to figure out. Some help will come from somewhere. We will be able to do it. Right. So that is very, very, very important to remember this. So he says, my own deep-seated desire had always been to share joy with others because he says, having perhaps suffered spiritually, I felt deeply the spiritual suffering of others and longed to do that. So always Swamiji always wanted to share whatever he knew. He wanted always to share that. He says, Master responded to this deep inner longing in me, and so he was being trained right from the beginning for public service, he says. And so, he was being made to write articles, and then even, he was asked to study the lessons deeply, he says. When he says that he asked him to, respond to the students when the tests were sent to review that. The whole purpose was he can only review that if he understood it properly. The whole point is Master wanted him to understand the teachings properly. So he made him in charge of, receiving those test answers and reviewing them. And he says, by these means, Master sought to give me a thorough grounding in the teachings. Right? So, where he says when Master kept talking about sending, going to India, and he thought maybe Master wants me to send me, and he says then I would be far away from Master, and he started feeling depression. And he says when he met Master again, he said, no more moods. How will you help, be able to help people if you are in moods? Master would had always spoken against people getting into mood. So it was very important that aspect for a spiritual journey again. So we all should strive against, if we have the tendency or to get into moods, swinging this way and that way, make sure we live in that calm center, being even-minded under all circumstances is what Master said. Okay, so here he says a little bit more and we can close. There are 2 more pages, so 5 minutes more maybe. He says, Master, he said, I don't believe I'm ready for this job. Again, this is very important when Swamiji said that, he was asked to stand after the satsang to stand and shake hands with the congregation. And he said, I used to feel drained. And he said, I don't think I'm ready for this job. Master said, if you, that is, you're thinking, I am shaking hands, me, I am doing that job. He said, the more you be, he says, God was flowing through me. The more we open ourselves as channel for God, that will go away. And this is something again we need to remember. The moment we bring ourselves into the picture, we are in trouble. Then we will be drained, then we will feel exhausted, we will feel we will go up and down. The more we place ourselves saying that, God, this is your thing, I mean, flow through me, I just place myself as a channel. Immediately, uh, flood of energy, we wouldn't even know uh, any fatigue in that, right? So he says his suggestion worked. By holding on to the thought of God, I discovered I actually felt more uplifted. The master said, when this I shall die, then shall I know who I am. This I, what is this I, the ego, I am doing it. When that I dies, he says, then I shall know who I am, who I truly am, right? Beyond this little self. Okay. So then that story of when Bernard comes and sends him off to San Diego, and he's not even only asked to lecture there, but also give Kriya initiation, whereas Swamiji has only attended his own Kriya initiation and nothing else. He is like terrified. But then he said yes, even though he knew, oh my God, what is, it was a test for him, right? He could have resisted saying, no, 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 I'm not going to do, I don't think I'm qualified. But he knew, I mean, what is this? I can't do it. He did try protesting. Bernard just handed over the money. He said, Master said, go. He went. He went, and he went through the whole thing. And then Master said later, most of all, people liked his lecture. He says, most of all, they liked your humility. Master said, humility, I reflected under the circumstances, had been virtually unavoidable. But the point is, the moment he opened himself to saying that, okay, Master wants me to go, I don't think I'm qualified for this, but he wants me to go, I will go. And the moment he opened himself, Master helped. The blessings, he said, even for the Kriya initiation, Master's blessings, however powerfully present, soon dispelled all my anxiety. This is again a lesson for all of us to open ourselves. The more we live, we do our seva as channel of master, not that, oh, I am doing this, I am teaching, I will do this, I do it. We are blocking that flow of grace through us, right? So, and we need to understand, Swami here, he was just 22 years, that's all. 22 years, he had just come, he had not even read the lessons. As soon as he came, Master accepted him as monk, as one amongst them. He came to stay, live in the ashram, and immediately, I mean, just that one Kriya initiation, he was asked to go and give lectures, review, no, the students. Whereas Swamiji had not even read those lessons till now, he made him read the lessons, review this thing, give Kriya initiation. Why? Because as we saw, Master was not looking at a 22-year-old man, but somebody from past life who was a disciple and who was a minister, who had that who had worked towards being capable enough to handle this, right? This is something that's very important aspect. He says, and again, he's saying that Master could have sent if it was so important. I mean, that it was important, but the whole point was it was for Swamiji's spiritual growth. That this whole thing, he could have sent Bernard himself. He could have sent Gyanma, Sister Gyanmata. He could have sent Saint Lin. They were far greater, people on the path for a longer time, and they were very, very advanced disciples. But they didn't need this. This particular seva Swami had to do. Why? Because he needed, because in future he had this role, which he was for all of us who came to this master's ray through Swami Kriyananda. He had to lead all these souls coming later. He had to be prepared. He needed it for his spiritual understanding. So Swami Kriyananda was sent, right? This is something where since he chose me, he can only have had in mind some reason concerning me. He saw us, as I said, in terms of the past lives we had spent with him, and not only of the present life. He didn't place the same importance on the length of discipleship of this lifetime, because Master knew who was from where. So that's why he would say, the last shall be the first. And where he meant last means those who last. I mean, all this lifetime, not come, take Kriya, go away. Last shall be first means somebody who lasts throughout in this journey of Kriya Yoga till self-realization. What mattered to him most of all, however, as he made clear to us also, was that our relationship with him was from of old, yea, from everlasting. The Guru travels with us from eons. There was one monk who once said, I saw a dream that I was in Lemuria and I was with Master. Swami was amazed. I mean, he finally said, have I also been with you for so long, Master? He said, yeah, I mean, it's been long. So then Swamiji was like, I'm still around. He's thought that, I just hope I'm not the only dud who's going around and round again. So he said, does it always take so long? He said, yes, it does. Desires and, the desires for this world's things takes people away. So we keep coming. If we are still around, it's not the first incarnation we are with Master. We have been around. But, some desire for this or that, some Maya takes us off and we are still roaming around in delusion. So making sure that this lifetime we last until the end. That's very important. So he says, Master gives this thing, your desire to be happy must include others' happiness also. I had long known in my heart that I would be called on some day to serve others, he says, mm, teaching and lecturing, but whether out of humility. So Swamiji always had this doubt, um, and all of us, right? Where initially all of us keep going through this. I mean, am I good enough? Do I really, what I say, does it really make any difference to this great spiritual path? That's why, that is how he says, or from darker motives of unwillingness. All of us go through that. It was several years later, I'm afraid, he said, before I could bring myself to believe that my lectures really did anyone any good. All of us go through those doubts, self doubts, I mean, I myself, um, when I started teaching here at this Gurgaon Center, initial times, I had taken level one. Then went back to Dhyanaji. I said, I have done level one. You hand it over to somebody. Dhyanaji said, look around you. Do you see anybody? So you take. I was like, oh, me? How can I take? And that's when Swami Dhyanaji told me something very important. I mean, I was thinking I was being very humble, saying like, how can I teach such profound teachings? But Dhyanaji said that, inferiority complex is also coming from the ego. Superiority complex, inferiority complex is also coming from the ego. The more we say, okay, this has been, something is trying to happen here, I open myself to be the channel. He takes care. Then everything, things happen. So this is very important again. But we all have those unwillingness monster, as the master used to say, and the doubts, self doubts that we all have. So he says, Sister Gyan Mata would always say, master gave any seva or called, she would say yes and make it snappy. And Swamiji always used to say yes to life. As I just said some time back, that the moment we say yes, when we say no, or oh no, not me, we block that energy, the grace from flowing. The moment we say yes, we can figure out later. Things come, things happen, people help, everything opens up for us. So that this is something very important to remember, especially we who are on the path. And this journey is about seva and meditation. Say yes and figure out later. So and he says the informal gatherings he would usually direct, he's saying, to conversations to me, to make him understand his philosophy, the depth of his philosophy. Oftentimes he would tell him, write it down. Master would always tell him, write what I'm saying just now. I might not say it again. So write it down what I'm saying. And that is how his further books. So New Path, Conversations with Yogananda, and then Essence of Self-Realizations. All these, Swamiji brought it out in this, like, trilogy of Master's saying, which he had written down. When master would be talking about something, he would keep noting it down. So okay, At such time, I would think it must be because, and Swamiji, self doubt, he would say, it must be because I'm so superficial that he won't let me close my eyes and meditate in his presence. But no, it was actually because Swamiji needed to understand, because he had a larger role to play later, right? So, lastly, Master was responding, however, to more deep seated tendencies in my nature, and was subtly emphasizing the work of absorbing. So, each one of us have our own tendencies that we bring from past lives. That is what Master tries to break in us when he is, giving us opportunities to do serve in his work, and was subtly emphasizing that the work of absorbing his teachings and of sharing them with others was what I myself needed to grow. So each one of us needs to understand what is that I need to grow on my spiritual journey. We need to figure out, and the more we are in tune, the more we keep asking Master, how do I proceed? He will guide us. So the more the attunement and having the right attitudes on the spiritual journey is a very these two are very important aspects for each one of us, for us to finally be free with Guru's help. So with that, thank you for joining, and sorry for those internet issues. See you next week for the next chapter, work versus meditation. Thank you.
Thank you.